Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Read and Reread. I'm Angelia, and today it is a Friday Reads on Sunday. It's a reading wrap up and also a little haul and a little story about our trip in San Antonio to a Friends of the Library used bookstore that I've been to before. So I'm going to talk about the trip to San Antonio first and then get to this week's reading second. So if you're more interested in one half than the other, that's the lineup today. So we went to San Antonio for a couple of days. If you have been around for a while, you already know, but I'll just recap. But my daughter Emma graduated from Texas State University in May, and now she's moved to San Antonio because she's going to start a PhD program at UTSA. And so we went down to see her in her new little apartment. It's very cute. And her boyfriend Cooper was there to join us for these, well, it wasn't really festivities, but we were just doing some stuff around town. It was fun. And the highlight was a trip to the bookseller, which is the Friends of the Library used bookstore, which is in the basement of the downtown main branch of the San Antonio Library. And it is one of the best used bookstores. The whole thing is in Dewey order, and it's just everything. A lot of it is library withdrawals, but it also is donations. So there's some books that still have library stuff on them and some do not, and they're really cheap, and it's just so good. So I tried to get a bunch of footage, but I kind of screwed up with my camera. I had technical difficulties. The video gods were not with me, but the book gods were. So at least I got that right. But I have a little bit of footage of when we were coming in that I can stick in there, and then I kind of messed up, and one of those things where you think it's on but it's not on, so I missed out on a bunch of stuff. I thought I was interviewing everybody, and I only got one, so I'm gonna put that in. So this is kind of a pretty lame vlog, but I'll stick it in there, and then I'll show you what we all got. And it was a mere, okay, you know what, in my defense, it was a mere 104 degrees that day, so I think my brain might have been slightly addled, but anyway, so here you go.
Continue on, because I think there's a reason they're sitting out here for free.
Joe, come on. Cooper, what have you found so far?
I found from Emma A Vaquero of the Brush Country by Frank J Dolby, who's a very prominent Texas historian.
Yeah.
And this, hopefully, for my mom.
Cool. That's an excellent book. Thank you. And then here's what we ended up with. Whenever I hear about people going on a book buying, I like to know what everybody got. So I'm going to show you mine, but I first want to show you, here's a picture of the group and what everybody else got. You can zoom in if you want to see their books a little more closely. And as you can see, that copy of Exit did not make the final cut, and Cooper selected a different book for his mom. And then everybody found something. We also hit a couple of guitar stores in the area for Stephen. And then, I don't know, we went and ate, I think is what we did. It was a really good day, a good couple of days, and now I'm back. So let me show you what I found down there in the bookseller. All right, first of all, I got a copy of Deacon King Kong by James McBride. I have read this book as a library book a few years ago. I think, when did this come out? Like 2021 maybe. And I really loved this. 2020. I think I read it in 2021. I don't know. But anyway, I will read this again, and I was really excited to see this nice copy because I want my own copy. I think this was the first thing I read, actually. I read his books all out of order. This takes place in 1969 in a housing project in Brooklyn, and it starts out with an older deacon of the church who's kind of perpetually intoxicated named Sportcoat, who shoots a younger man in the complex. And then why he did that, and the investigation and the repercussions, and how the witnesses perceived it, and the community's efforts to protect Sport Coat, and all of these things come into play. It's a snapshot of the times. It's also kind of a mystery. There's secrets revealed. It's a little bit of a heist. Not really a heist, but it's a little bit of a caper. There's humor. Everybody has excellent nicknames, and it's a lot of fun, but there's also a lot going on. So if you loved the Heaven and Earth grocery store and you haven't read previous books of James McBride's, this one is really, I love this book, and I don't hear people talk about this one as much. A lot of people talk about The Good Lord Bird, which is also really good. But I like this one better than The Good Lord Bird, actually. So I might be the outlier, but I love Deacon King Kong. I also really scored, and I got not one, but two books from the Tales of the City series in a lovely hardcover. And so there's 9 or 10 books in this series, and I'm up to book maybe number 5. And all of the ones I have so far are paperbacks, which is fine, but they're kind of ratty paperbacks too. So if I eventually find hardcovers to replace the previous ones, I will work my way up. But right now I'm excited to have 2 more books in the series for when I get to them. And I totally gave up on having the editions match because I just keep finding them in different printings. Because this series began in the late 70s, and everyone thought he was done, and then he let another one out last year, so who knows. But I got The Days of Anna Madrigal, and I got Michael Tolliver Lives. And these are 2 of my favorite characters from the series, and I don't even know which numbers these are, but now I'm ready when they come up. I also found, every time I go to any kind of used bookstore, I always check and see if they have anything by Percival Everett, because he's written a gazillion books, and now that I am completely obsessed with Percival Everett, I'm always on the lookout, and I found one. This one is Percival Everett by Virgil Russell. By Percival Everett. So right away, it's got the Percival Everett kind of odd vibes, and I can't exactly tell what this is about because there is a canceled out barcode right over the description, but here, I'll read you what I can read. It says, a father sits in his wheelchair at a nursing home and blank, 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 blank. Son visits. Each man tells the other's stories to ward off pain and loneliness. But the details tangle, the plot threads twist, and soon a wild escapade down the halls of the nursing home calls into question all that has gone before. This one's from 2013. So I think this is, I don't know where this falls exactly. He's very prolific. I think this is more recent than Erasure, maybe, but further back than Telephone, somewhere in there. But I think there's, a bunch of other books in between. He's written a lot of books. So I'm excited about that. And then the next one is, the category is Ann Patchett Made Me Do It, which has happened several times, but This Is Happiness by Niamh Williams. It's an Irish novel. All I can tell you is there's a small town in Ireland. It used to rain a lot, then it stopped raining, and they're hoping electricity will be coming soon. So obviously it's in the past, but I don't really know how far in the past, because apparently it's one of those small towns that's lagging behind on modern developments. And that is it. That's all I know. A small town in Ireland, and it's supposed to be really good. And I know that this author, it says he was longlisted for History of the Rain on the Booker list. I haven't read that either. Haven't read anything. But I just know I saw one of those bits, one of those Parnassus bookstore bits, where she brings up, if you haven't read it, it's new to you. And one day it was this book, and it sounded really good. I have a number of books that I have jotted down from Ann Patchett's excellent reader's advisory. I know she's selling books, but she's also just a really good book talker. And so this was one. So if you've ever read this, let me know. Hopefully I'm in for a good time and not in for a, why did I get this? But I mean, it was like $1. Not a high risk situation. So This Is Happiness by Niamh Williams. And then last, but hopefully not least, we have Hot Milk by Deborah Levy or Levy. So my experience with this author is that I read a book, what was it, August Blue, that I read for the BookTube prize. And I liked it. I didn't love it. It was okay. I didn't quite get what she was trying to go for. It seemed like there was a lot of ideas that didn't quite get there for me. But I've heard so many people rave about how much they love this author, and this book is frequently mentioned. And so I knew back then that I needed to give her another chance. And I know some people also like her. I think she has some nonfiction. But anyway, I saw this on the shelf and I thought, okay, and it's a really nice copy. It doesn't even look, I mean, I guess somebody donated it. So, and this says it was shortlisted for the Booker in 2016. And I guess she's been shortlisted a couple of times, and I'm just really behind on the game. So I hope that I like this one better than the other one, but again, it was kind of a low risk situation. So there, it was very fun. We had a great time down in the basement. So now I'm ready to move on to the recap of this week's reading. And it should be fairly brief because I finished just 2 books and then I'm in the middle of 2 other books right now. And the 2 books that I finished are both kind of sequels or series or continuations, so I can't delve too deep into their content. But I did read Big Sky by Kate Atkinson. This is the one that it's been bumped several times by the emergence of things on my library hold list, but I finally got around to reading it. And this is book 5 in the Jackson Brodie series. And if you recall, number 4 was kind of a dud. So in this series, the 6th book is coming out very soon. When is it coming out? Beginning of September or somewhere in September. But really 1, 3, and 5 were really good. 2 was okay. And then 4 was a dud. So hopefully number 6 is going to be on the good side. She's had long enough to gather her thoughts and come up with a good number 6 book. But Big Sky, as I said, was number 5. And I remember when I first read it, I was really relieved and then delighted that number 5 was a good novel because number 4 had been disappointing. And the same thing happened again. I guess because once again I read number 5 pretty much right after number 4. But it moves forward in time. I don't want to if you haven't been reading this series, you don't really want to hear what's in this book. But all of the classic Atkinson elements are in play here. The excellent structuring, the plot, the careful development of characters. She has several people she's juggling and progressively reveals more about each person until you find out how they all interrelate, the characters and the plots. Jackson is dealing with some private investigator cases that somehow get, mixed up and intertwined with a bigger crime plot. He is dealing with his teenage son, who was a little kid in the last book, but they jumped the plot forward. And his older child, his daughter, is about to get married. He still has never-ending leftover baggage with his former girlfriend, Julia, who is Nathan, the son's mother. My favorite characters, besides Jackson Brodie, the favorite characters that were actually introduced in this book are Crystal and Harry, who is a stepmother and stepson who both are kind of enduring the living with Crystal's husband, Tommy, who's just kind of a brutish character. Harry is kind of a sensitive, bookish teenage kid who is interested in theater design. He doesn't match well at all with his dad, who is just this kind of loud, bull in a china shop, macho kind of dude. He and his stepmother Crystal have this good connection. And I'm going to read you one little teeny piece that I just really loved in this book. But Harry has this summer job as the ticket taker, this thing called Transylvania World, which is takes place in a seaside resort. So there's a bunch of tacky attractions that are part of the story. And he works at this Transylvania World, which is a really cut rate haunted house kind of thing. Sometimes when the scary character doesn't come to work, he actually has to take the tickets and then run around through the back corridors and put on a scary mask to do the jump scares in the attraction. And so he's sitting in there and he's thinking about an alternative attraction that he thinks would work out better. This morning, in the welcome absence of patrons in Transylvania World, Harry was sticking his head in Cranford. He liked Cranford. It was a safe place where small events were accorded great dramatic significance. Harry thought this was better than big things being treated as if they weren't important. A better attraction than the World, in Harry's opinion, would be Cranford World, a place where for the price of the entrance fee you could call on Miss Matty and drink tea, or have an evening of cards, or sing around the piano with your neighbors. He would enjoy listening to the captain reading aloud from the Pickwick Papers. Then he gets cut off by an interruption, but the idea of a teenage boy sitting at Transylvania World and imagining Cranford World, I just absolutely love that. Love Kate Atkinson. All right, I also finished Olive again, Elizabeth Strout's follow-up to Olive Kitteridge, and this is such a wonderful book. You got to read the two books together. No, it does not stand alone. There's so many things that reference back to the first book, so you have to start with Olive Kitteridge. I tried to sit and think about which one was my favorite, and then I decided that I refuse to select them, and I want to consider them as a continuous piece, a necessary duo. But in this book, Olive, who is how can I describe her? She is, curmudgeonly, prickly, she's just so Olive. There's a part in this book where her husband says, could you just maybe turn it down and be a little less Olive? But as Olive gets older, she doesn't really get grouchier. Actually, she gets a little more introspective, because Olive, historically has not been very good at introspection. When she gets close to dangerous or unpleasant emotions, she tends to wall up and get really defensive. So again, Strout uses the structure of connected short stories that are sometimes Olive is the main character, sometimes it's other characters in the town where she lives, but Olive somehow intersects. She's either appears in the story or she's spoken about in the story. And so sometimes she's front and center and sometimes she is in the background. But we do get the sense of how the significance of Olive in her town, in her family, for good or bad. Olive is a divisive figure. She is that teacher, and you probably had one, that when people talk about her years later, some people loved her, some people despised her, some people thought she left them with a piece of wisdom or helped them out at just the right moment. And some people thought she was the meanest thing that ever happened in high school. She's a retired math teacher. I can't tell you too much about the personal life going on for Olive, but she does become more introspective as she's aging. Physical things are starting to happen, inconvenient aspects of aging, and she's also just starting to finally take stock of the role that she has played in some parts of her family saga. That's all I'm going to say. But what I love about Strout is that she never falls back on any kind of stock themes or tropes about older characters. Every person is interesting. Every person is developing. It could be bad or good, but every person is always evolving in her books. It gets pretty dark. There's themes of loss, loneliness, regrets, but there's also a lot of just laugh out loud humor, because Olive, oh my gosh, I just love her. Sometimes she's just so awful, but I cherish her anyway. So I cannot wait to see what happens in the new book coming out by Elizabeth Strout, where she is going to somehow intersect Lucy Barton and Olive Kitteridge. I cannot wait. And then I have two books that I'm in the middle of. I didn't take Thunderclap with me on the trip, so I didn't really make any progress from a few days ago, but I'm right in the middle of it. Nonfiction. It's a memoir. I mean, it's hard to tell you exactly. If I tried to tell you what it was about, it would sound really odd, because it's about Carel Fabricius and Dutch art, and Laura Cumming and her father, who was also an artist. But that doesn't sound very cohesive, but it's really working out the way that she is formatting this book. Somehow I'm learning about things about art, Dutch art, that I did not know, and yet I'm also having the experience that you get when you read a good memoir, and that personal aspect of somebody's reflection on their life with their father. So it's very good. And then last of all, I am in the middle of the Safekeep by Yael van der Wouden. This is a Dutch writer. I think it's her debut novel, and it hit the booker list. I'm right in the middle, and I'm not sure where this is going. There is plenty of atmosphere and just a little bit of plot, and I'm not sure. I have a number of theories about what is going on here, and I don't know if any of them are correct. It's about, it's 1960. There's a very odd young woman who lives in a house kind of in the countryside. She can drive into town, but it's a house that her family moved into near the end of World War II, and all we know is they moved into it. I don't know who lived there before. They moved into it already furnished, and she still lives there. Her brothers have both moved out, but Isabel's very odd, and she's very attached to the house. She spends a lot of time just inventory. She has sheets of inventories of what's in the house, of where everything is, and is very persnickety and thinking that people moved things or touched things or stole things all the time. She has a high anxiety level about doing anything outside of the house. She has a high anxiety level about issues of relationships or sexuality. I mean, she's very uncomfortable about her one brother and all of his girlfriends, and her other brother and his boyfriend. And then in the midst of all of this kind of nervous anxiety, very structured little life that Isabel leads, her brother drops off his most recent girlfriend, Eva, to stay with her for a month while he goes on a business trip. And it's this great big house, so there's plenty of room, but this just freaks Isabel out. It, upends all of her daily routine. And Ava is talkative, and she's wanting to know about everything. She's touching everything and asking questions, and it's driving Isabel nuts. And that's all I'm gonna say. We'll see what happens. It's very tense. It's very sensuous. And I don't know. I'm getting kind of Sarah Waters vibes. That's what I have so far. So that's it. That's where I'm at. I hope you've been having a great week. Let me know what you've been reading, and I'll be back on Tuesday with a preview of this year's edition of 30 Stories in 30 Days, my September annual project celebrating short stories, where I read a different short story every day for the month, and I invite you to come along with me on the journey. So I'm going to talk all about that on Tuesday. Have a great day. I'll see you soon.